a very beautiful story reported in Tirmidhi as well, that there was a young man by the name of Zaahir, whom the Prophet ﷺ used to love a lot. And we don't know much about him. Wallahi, I looked up as much as I could. We don't know much about this person, Zaahir. We don't know hardly anything about him. This is his most famous story. But there was something about him that caused the Prophet ﷺ to love this man. And he would have an immense amount of affinity for him. He was a simple, sincere believer. We don't know much about him for his jihad, for his knowledge, for his ghazawat. He just simply seems to be a nice guy that the Prophet ﷺ liked. Once the Prophet ﷺ saw him in the merchant, in the suq, in the marketplace, selling some things. And he's screaming out, who's going to buy this from me? Who's going to buy this from me? So in those days they had the suq and they mentioned the market. They mentioned what they have. Who's going to buy this from me? And so the Prophet ﷺ came from behind, quietly. He's literally playing a practical joke on Zaahir. He came quietly from behind, and he grabbed him. Zaahir is standing up. He grabbed him from behind, and he basically locked him. He gave him a lock, a bear lock, a hug, right? So Zaahir is trying to see, who is this? What are you doing? Let go of me. I'm trying to sell my stuff here. And when he saw it was none other than the Prophet ﷺ, immediately he became limp, and he touched as much of the chest of the Prophet ﷺ as he could to get the barakah from his body. And then the Prophet ﷺ began joking and crying out in the suq, who is going to buy this from me? Who is going to buy this abd from me? This slave from me? Right? So Zaahir was crying out, who's going to buy this merchandise? Now he's being clapped, and the Prophet ﷺ is saying, who's going to buy this abd? Now, in a marketplace in those days, when you're saying who's going to buy the abd, you mean the slave, right? But of course, even the Prophet ﷺ, it's true, Zaahir was not an abd to mankind, but he was an abd of Allah. So even in this joke, he's not saying any lie. Even in this joke, he's not lying. So who will purchase this abd from me? So Zaahir says, Ya Rasulullah, in that case, you're going to get a very bad bargain if you're going to sell me. I'm not going to be very, very expensive. And the Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّكَ لَثَمِينٌ, you are very expensive in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. SubhanAllah. It's a beautiful story here that shows us the humanity of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.